Hey, Jakey.
What?
What's black and white and black and white and black and white?
I don't know. What?
A penguin rolling down a hill.
Oh, God.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Engaged Family Gaming Podcast. This is episode 209, and my name is Steven Dutzman. I'm your host, as always. This week, it's a quiet fireside chat, and I'm joined by my very good friend, Amanda Farah, the Princess of Power. How are you?
I'm good. I'm happy that we're back this week after my horrible illness from last week.
So somehow, we missed a week last week. So I apologize for that, but we made up for it by publishing our previous episode late. So it all kind of worked out. But your house was a disease factory, and then mine did the same thing. So we're all recovered now, so we shouldn't be missing much, which is great. This week, it's video game week, which is why it's quiet, and it's me and Amanda. Not a lot of news to really talk about.
Nope.
But that's okay. Because you and I have both been playing I have been playing some video games. You have been continuing your voyage in whatever world Final Fantasy XIV is in.
It's true.
But we have some stuff to talk about. This is not, it's not an empty run of show. But the first thing I'd like to do is go around the horn. How about that?
Let's do it.
So, I'm just going to talk about some things, and then we'll close it up with Final Fantasy XIV. So,
Brilliant.
First, this is my brag. I have finally rolled credits on a Pokemon game for the first time in my life at nearly 40 years old.
Dude.
Are you not proud of me?
I'm so proud of you. That's amazing.
So, I finished... finished... You never really finish a Pokemon game, is the thing that I have learned. However... I made the credits roll, which for me is a victory. Normally I get like halfway through and I get it like to a gym and I'm like, all right, I'm good, because something else comes up. But Pokemon Shield and Pokemon Sword likewise have a lot of quality of life improvements that kept me from falling off.
Okay.
I rarely was confused because, man, I'm stupid. I mean, you know that. So like,
dude,
some of those games in the past are a little arcane, unless you like have a guide in front of you or have memorized typing, things like that. It makes it so much easier to just come back to the game, from even after taking a little bit of time off, which is what happened inevitably. I would take a couple of weeks off and I'd forget everything. Because most notably, if you've encountered a Pokemon before, you know all of the typing for it. So, and it tells you when you're trying to bring Pokemon in if you have stuff that are effective against it, etc. Which is, so you kind of it remembers for you with the things you've experienced, which is so great. It is also shorter. I mean, and some folks called that a complaint, right? When the internet was mad at Pokemon.
Yeah.
What do I say? What do you mean was mad at Pokemon? The internet being angry at Pokemon. A big piece of it was that this game was shorter, and I can understand why that's a criticism for some folks. However, I felt super fulfilled and very happy with what I was experiencing. I had my team. I got to the end. I still have post-game stuff. Like, I haven't caught the legendary yet, and I'm probably going to do that. And there's still things to do, right? I could catch them all, and I've thought about that, and I probably will like plug away at it over time just because it's fun. I'm definitely going to play the DLC when it comes out. Like, I'm actually really excited to continue my story with my team with like new stuff to do. But man, it is hands down, Pokemon Shield is my favorite Pokemon game of all time, if for nothing else because I finished it. Like, it actually let me in. Whereas previous games, and I know I talk all the time, like they're made for kids. They are deliberately made for kids in that they have room in their brains to absorb all the little minutia that I just can't. without writing it down.
Fair.
Pokemon Shield welcomed me in with loving arms, and I finished it.
I'm so proud of you.
I
really, really am.
My kids are pretty proud of me too. My oldest was like judging me for like not having an optimal team loadout for when I went to the end, and he was like not telling me what the final boss was going to be, because the final boss was actually very challenging. Like the final battle was very hard because my team was not in any way optimized for him, and there was just, I had a lot of holes in my team, and it was a mess. And so I just got by on the fact that I looked at him and I was like, I've been playing RPGs for 3 times your lifespan. At the end of the day, I know when it's time to just sit and potion spam myself. And guess what? It worked. So yeah, Pokemon Shield. I would recommend this to anyone. This is what I would say. If you are a parent who has forever been like, Pokemon is crazy, I can't do it, try Pokemon Sword or Shield. These games are shorter, and you will get a full Pokemon experience. I did it in like 23 hours. That's so good.
That's amazing.
Right?
I'm super proud of you.
And what's hilarious is I followed that up by starting Assassin's Creed Odyssey, which is a 100-something hour experience. So, like, you know, it all balances out. But, so again, that's my recommendation for Pokemon Shield. If you're a parent and Pokemon has just been way out there, it's too long, there's too much, Pokemon Shield, you can play it, you can finish it, 20-some-odd hours, and you will have that experience, which means you'll be able to relate to your kids in a way that you weren't before, because you'll be able to say, hey, I played this game from beginning to end. I know what it's like to go through these gym battles. I know, you know what's going on. I was just disappointed in the final tournament, because I have a tournament at the end, that I didn't get to fight my favorite gym leader, who is the ice gym leader. I didn't get to fight her. I was a little disappointed, but it's fine. I whooped up on some other guy. So that's Pokemon Shield.
That's so good.
So because we were all so sick, right? I just needed to finish Pokemon, which is what I did. The next thing I did, wouldn't you know, I spent a good amount of time with a Super Nintendo game.
Did you?
I did. So I read an article, it was on Kotaku like 2 or 3 months ago. Kotaku, for those that don't know, is a video game website. Seriously pointed directly at like hardcore gamers, which is probably why, if you're listening to this show, you probably have no idea what I just said. But they, one of their writers, who's big time RPG fan, said that his comfort food, like his most playtime in the last like 6 or 7 months, have been NES and SNES games, specifically role-playing games on the Nintendo Switch. Which is interesting because he's known for being a Final Fantasy guy, and there are no older Final Fantasy games on the Switch. Like, there's 7 and 8 and 9, but like not 4 or 6 or 5, which is his jam. So he's been playing Dragon Warrior and Breath of Fire and things like that, which are simpler role-playing games from an earlier era. And I took his advice, and I have a Nintendo Switch Online, which I recommend to just about anyone who has a Nintendo Switch. I think it's a great value. And in the Super Nintendo game package, there are 2 Breath of Fire games. They are role-playing games made by Capcom, which is interesting because Capcom, they don't do that no more.
No.
Not so much known for the role-playing games, although if they brought Breath of Fire back, I think that would make some waves, I think. And they got to do something. So I started Breath of Fire 2, and my kids were really, they were watching it with me, and they were really interested. And then eventually they were like, oh, you got like a dog companion. How cool is that? Like, your dude's like a dog, and his name is Bo, and he uses a bow, and it's like the first part of Bow Wow. And I was like, welcome to the 90s localization, kids.
I love it.
So, but the thing that and so they all asked me, like, do you think we could play this? And I was like, well, of course, you absolutely could. And the more I played it, the one thing that I found really interesting is that game is really hard.
Yo.
And so I know the reason I bring it up is, number one, it's super cool, and if if you're a parent who maybe remembers playing old school role-playing games on your SNES and you've kind of fallen off of it, you know, some of them are on there. You can definitely play them. I don't know that I would give this to a kid. And it's not from like a content perspective, like whatever, you know, like they fight zombies, but it's 16-bit, you know, they do the thing where they slide forward when they attack, you know, like this is old school stuff, but because it's really, really, really hard, not like Pokemon hard where it's like you just got to remember stuff, and if you're too lazy to remember it or write it down, that is kind of your own fault, aka me.
Yeah.
But in this case, like it is brutally difficult. And so I mean, your mileage may vary. What are your thoughts on that? Like punishing difficulty from older games that are hard just because they're old.
I mean, I think that when I go back and I start playing some of those older games, I don't have the patience for them anymore because I'm not a kid. So I don't know, like games have evolved so much to have so much more quality of life. And I don't necessarily think that going back and playing games that are older and therefore are more punishing because they don't have those quality of life upgrades, I don't necessarily love them. You know?
Yeah.
Like they're good to have in the collective consciousness. If you love playing punishing masochore games, you know, go for it. If you love Nintendo hard, I'm not going to judge you for it, but I personally have zero patience for that kind of stuff anymore. I play games a lot of the time to decompress, not get more frustrated.
Yeah, I mean, that phrasing right there, playing it to escape, to decompress, to kind of avoid the shenanigans versus, you know, getting riled up. Like, that's why I don't play Dark Souls. And I know, and this is... I know for a fact those games are good. I know it. I'm absolutely certain. What game did I start? There was a game that literally I started, and I was like, okay, this is the final straw. I can't even remember. It was within the last couple of weeks. I played. Was it Jedi Fallen Order? It was
Jedi, yeah.
And we talked about that, where I played it and I just realized I'm bad, and so I gave it back. I took it out and I started playing something else. But the reality is, I turned it off and I started playing other games that were hard, just not the same way. And you're right. I mean, we're grown-ups and we want to relax with our games. And because I found myself playing Breath of Fire 2 and I got to a dungeon. And I mean, it wasn't a dungeon, it was like a lumber yard or whatever, but whatever. I got to a place and I was a character all by myself with no one else in my party, and repeatedly got thrown into combats with like 6 or 7 enemies.
Right. And
so I get one turn and then they all get a turn. And so like they get one round and I'm like halfway through my health bar, and it's like, I mean, so it's really difficult to, and the enemies always go first because I'm low level, so I don't have a high enough speed or whatever. So it was really just so frustrating. I enjoyed it and I loved it for the grind and the fact that I could just kind of sit there and, you know, I could listen to podcasts while I was fighting monsters because it was mindless. But it was interesting to think about, you know, and when my kids asked if they could play, I was like, of course, but you guys got to know, like, this game is gonna punch you in the head.
Oh, yeah. Hondo P.
And I think that's the lesson I took from that, like the idea of, you know, content-wise, a lot of those NES and Super Nintendo games are going to be perfectly fine. But I think if they've only played modern stuff, like if you've only played like Fire Emblem Heroes or whatever, or Fire Emblem Warriors or Hyrule Warriors, and then you go try and play like Double Dragon, like they are ostensibly the same because they're very different. Because it's just they're better. Now, some games in that thing are timeless, right? Super Mario World is one of the best games of all time. That's very different. But even that game punches you in the head a lot, especially in the later levels.
It's true. Like, entirely true.
But So that was my frustrating gaming experience of the weekend. But I want to talk to you about the most divine video game experience I've had in a very long time. This is going to be a game, we're going to be talking about it a lot. We're probably going to do some streams, probably some YouTube videos. My sons, Evan and Jake and I, we formed a guild in Dauntless. It is... now that we can, I'm playing on PC. This is the miracle of modern gameplay. Thank you, Fortnite, for forcing this. I was on PC. My son Evan was on PlayStation 4, and my son Jake playing on his Switch Lite. We were all playing seamlessly, able to just join into our parties, and we formed a 3-man wrecking crew. We negotiated and talked about who was going to use what weapons, and then we just hunted a bunch of monsters. For those that don't know what Dauntless is, I've talked about it briefly on the podcast in the past, but Dauntless is Monster Hunter meets World of Warcraft.
Yes.
It is a T-rated monster hunting game where you play a character who, there's a story, but I barely understand what's happening. And you equip crazy weapons, and you group up in groups of up to 4, and you go fight giant monsters. And there will be one monster on a whole map, and you have to hunt that one monster, and you have to fight it. And they are big fights, they are long, they are complicated, and then you kill the monsters, they drop pieces, and you bring them back, and you use them to either build or improve armor and weapons. And the real loop here is, especially for the 3 of us, is we go and Evan's like, hey, I'm trying to upgrade this spear, so I need to go fight this monster, and so we go do it. And in the beginning, we're all in a lot of the same, we're doing kind of the same thing. So it's like, all right, let's just go fight the ice thing 3 times, and then let's go fight the fire thing 3 times. But over time, the quality of your loot drops, or the quantity of the drops that you get, because some of it's tied to how well you do in the fight. You might have to do it a few different times. You may have to go back and switch weapons, because there are some fights, you're fighting earth monsters, you have to have a hammer to knock its armor off. And if you don't have the hammer to knock the armor off, you may as well not even try. It's really interesting, cool fights that are hard enough to make you work, but not so hard that they make you want to throw your controller. So we made a guild that other folks are welcome to join. You can message us on the Facebook page if you would like. The guild is called Till All R1. It's definitely a Transformers reference, because of course it is.
Amazing.
And we did it. I mean, we played, the 3 of us combined. I mean, this was a long time, so but we were all playing together, so I was fine with it. We played probably about 6 hours on Saturday once we got going.
Wow. I love that.
And it was it was probably the best video game time that me and the 2 boys have had, I think, ever, playing together. We tried playing Fortnite together, and that was hard because I'm just not good at it. But this was more my speed, but also I know how to manage a quest list, and I know how to gather materials and try and complete objectives. So being able to be like, all right, guys, this is what we've got to do. I was able to kind of help them. And it doesn't hurt that the weapons are awesome. They've got this, my son Evan was using this giant 2-handed sword, and Jacob fights with chain blades, which are more or less the blades of chaos from God of War. And I was using a spear, which you build up. His is crazy. You build up meter by fighting, and then you absorb it and turn it into ammo. And then you can move to range, and you can turn your spear into a bazooka. So it gives you this loop of, you got to run in, hit it a bunch, do whatever, and then back up and then shoot it. Which is a really neat mechanic. And I used a hammer once because you needed it in order to kill the rock boss.
Of course.
It was, and I don't know that we're going to do this we're obviously not going to play it every day. But this is one of those, if every couple of weeks we sit down and just do a couple of hunts and just put a bunch of times free, It does throw microtransactions in your face. There is a quest to go get the battle pass.
It's the
but
greatest.
oh,
I love it.
The free battle pass is there, and you can 100% do it. And the rewards on the free battle pass are better than most. So I really thought it was fine. I think this is one of those things, right? I don't know that we would do every battle pass, but like they're very heavily themed. Like this one is all cyberpunk this season, so I don't particularly care for any of those. But like the first season was like ninjas, so everybody got to look like a ninja. So I might do that. So Dauntless, highly approve of it. I think it is a great multiplayer experience. You can do the fight. You can do private matches, so you don't have any strangers in.
That's a biggie.
The fights are a little harder, but if you're willing to deal with that, I mean, Evan has done a few times where he's fought the monsters by himself because he just didn't want to deal with humans, and he was able to do it. So I think that they scale the monsters down a little bit so you can fight them. Some of them, I'm sure it's impossible, but yeah, it was great. So that is Dauntless. It's free. It's on PC, Switch, PS4, Xbox One, cross-play across everything. If your kids are looking for another game to play with their friends, and you're done with them playing Fortnite for whatever reason, this is a decent alternative. You know, get them together with their friends and have them fight monsters rather than, you know, shoot people.
True.
So yeah, that is my story, and I'm sticking to it. Amanda, you have been adventuring in
Eorzea.
It was definitely lost my mind. Is it Eorzea or Eorzea?
Eorzea.
Eorzea, okay.
So yes.
The land of Final Fantasy
close
XIV.
to the land of Final Fantasy XIV, yeah. So I'm getting really close to. Actually, before we jump into that, I kind of want to just like add my own little thoughts into Dauntless. I had a chance to check it out when we were at PAX West. That's where I checked it out, and I had a lot of the same thoughts. And unfortunately, we haven't had like a whole ton of time to sit down with the little ones and be like, "Hey guys, let's play some Dauntless." It's a little bit beyond Vivi at this point, and I think that she would just get really mad at the game. And so I'm hoping that we just push her off of it for just a little bit longer, and then we can all sit down and play together. But it's a super, yeah, I'm down, man. I'm down. Like, we have been meaning to sit down and play this game for ages because it is such a satisfying experience. It's just Monster Hunter Light, and it's super interesting.
Yeah, I think that the Monster Hunter Light is a really important phrase, because Monster Hunter, you know, for folks that are listening, is the loop that is so exciting about Monster Hunter is that it is a team-based experience where it's all about the boss. It's all about fighting a big thing, and the big thing is always, since they only have to make so many different monsters, they can make them really cool and really dynamic and have interesting mechanics and fight loops. And so with Monster Hunter, the problem is that it's very hard. It's a very arcane action role-playing game. It's rooted in Japanese.
World is a lot better though. Like, just to call a spade, it's a T-rated game.
Yeah.
But it is hard. It is still much harder than Dauntless.
Lots of systems.
Yes.
Lots of crunchy bits.
Yeah. So like really, but I mean, if you love those kinds of games that are deep in mechanics, then I mean,
then you should probably take a look. However, Dauntless is a decent middle ground.
It is.
It feels like there are a lot of systems that I'm just looking to kind of get into, right? You know, there's, you know, you have like these different seals and augmentations that you can put on your weapons and all that, which is great. And I'm sure eventually we're going to need it. And the fact that there's so many loadout spots, like I can just tell I'm gonna have to build like 15 different suits of armor, which is my favorite thing to do in role-playing games. So yeah, the fact that you called it like Monster Hunter Light, that is so perfect, because it is way more accessible, and you know, also, you know, free.
Yeah,
which
exactly.
says something.
And Monster Hunter World is not. It's a $60 game. So
also available on Switch.
Yes, although it is a bit chuggy on the Switch.
I mean, yeah. I mean, what are you gonna do? I mean, a lot of things are. It's just that, but it's not unplayable. I mean, Jacob was playing on it, and his biggest struggle is that like he loaded into maps a little bit slower than us. But other than that, he was happy with it. But he was playing it on the Switch Lite in handheld mode. So because obviously Switch Lite doesn't have a dock mode, I wonder if he tried it on a Switch in docked mode, like on the other one, whether or not he would have a better experience. We'll have to try that. But yeah, so I'm glad that you had the experience at PAX West. We should hook up and play. I will totally. I wouldn't even need to Sherpa you because I'm not that far in. Also, you don't really need Sherpa-ing. This is go stab the big monster thing.
Yeah, it's true.
So we'd be okay. So yeah, that's Dauntless. Man,
That's
I love
Dauntless.
that game.
Yeah, I'm pretty psyched that you guys are getting into it because what a stellar game.
Oh man, it's so good. It's so I like. I mean, I played it at PAX East a couple years ago. Maybe it was last year. I can't remember. They all bleed together. And I came home saying I'm definitely going to play this when I can play with my sons. And this past weekend, I was like, you know what, guys, we have the capacity. We should just do this. And we did it, and it was great. So I definitely recommend it.
I love it.
And I give it the seal of approval. The only question mark is that these are big monsters, and when you hit them with swords, they do bleed. So if you are super anti-blood in your games, which I totally understand if you are, then be aware. The monsters do bleed. However, you are never fighting people. You are fighting giant owl beasts or crazy demon beavers. I don't know. I killed a demon beaver and a lizard. I don't know. I killed some monsters, but no people. So it's rated T for a reason, but largely because you're using, real weapons to fight monsters and they bleed. So there you go. So Dauntless. Now on to Final Fantasy XIV, which is a game that I want to play, but I just can't. Now I'm just so lost in watching you guys talk about what you're doing on Twitter that I just don't think I could ever catch up. Can you explain to me?
I can tell you how you can catch up because it is not that difficult, believe it or not. I mean, we've been at this for a couple months and we play maybe a couple times a week. We go hard and heavy on the weekends sometimes, but we haven't had time over the last 2-3 weeks because we've had birthdays and this, going into the city and, there's other stuff going on. So yeah, the thing about Final Fantasy XIV to keep in mind is that it is only as time consuming as you intend it to be. It doesn't have to be bonkers. You don't have to sink hundreds of hours into this game to get a lot out of it. The catching up is as simple as playing the main story. That's it, man. And I think we're about 30 hours into the main story, so it's about as much as playing a regular Final Fantasy game. So all you got to do is you got to choose your class and just, I'm not going to lie to you, the main story quest in the base game is not all that exciting until you get towards the end of it. We're encroaching on level 40 right now, so we're about 10 levels, away from the end of the game in terms of main story missions and stuff like that. So we'll be moving into the next one, which I think is Heaven's Word. Pretty sure Heaven's Word is after this. I think so. Yeah. So we're going to be moving through that and then through Stormbringer and then through Shadowbringer, and there was Stormblood and then Shadowbringer. So that's how that's going to go. But we're taking our time, man. The stuff that we've been really enjoying is just sitting around and I go fishing in the game because I'm the culinarian, so I cook stuff.
All right.
But it really isn't that difficult to get into. The best part of it is the social aspect. And that's just hopping on Discord or we chat on Steam. That's what we use. We use Steam Voice. But yeah, man, that's what we do. So it's not that difficult to get caught up. It's really not, especially not with somebody that's just like, hey, all you gotta do is just get through the main story quest and we'll sit there and we'll do dungeons with you.
Yeah. All right. Well, I will continue to think about it.
Okay.
So the new expansion, the Shadowbringer one, that came out last year, right?
Yes.
And so what do they do? A new one every couple of years?
About that, yeah. Yeah, the last one that they had before this one was in 2017. So.
All right, so just about every 2 years, like clockwork. This is one of those games. What's crazy about this, just from the history of it for those listening, is that when this game came out, it was terrible.
Oh, yeah.
And Square Enix saw enough of a kernel, or someone gave them a really good sales pitch. One or the other, probably both. And they saw a kernel of fun, and they just redid it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I mean, how crazy is that? That doesn't happen.
No.
Nowadays, especially.
Well,
okay.
We'll get to the future exception to that rule. But yes, we can talk a little bit more how this went later on if you want to get into it. But yeah,
we can.
This is
in general that doesn't happen.
No,
right?
not
Like a game comes out and it's terrible, and very rarely does it get fixed. And so here we are, and it's a successful MMO with a subscription model, which is also rare, right? You know, it's pretty much, there's a handful now, maybe, or is it just two, right? Is it just Final Fantasy and WoW?
No, there's still quite a few MMOs that are out there, like
with subscription models.
There's also
Star
Wars: The Old Republic, which is a subscription model.
All right,
it's
I thought that went free to play.
It is free to play for the first 10 levels.
Oh, all right, okay. So very few, but you're right. There's some. Man, I mean, I played it for a little bit. We streamed a small portion of it during our Extra Life stream. So I did make a character, and one of the donation incentives was to name him and choose his hair color. So I will be. So I have to commit to playing as that character at some point. I can't even remember the name at this point, but I have it installed. So I am going to play, and so we will probably be streaming some of this on our Facebook page. I'm kind of excited to give it a try. I mean, I love Final Fantasy games and I love MMOs, so we'll be taking advantage of this. So you guys, it seems to me that Final Fantasy XIV is your chill game.
It's our chill game. It's absolutely our chill game.
And do you think the game supports that well enough, or
for being chill?
Yeah.
I mean, I think that there's a lot to say for there's a lot to say for games like specifically for Final Fantasy XIV. It does what a lot of MMOs just can't. And a lot of MMOs have never been able to transcend the meta. They've only had like, okay, fight things, do dungeons, level up, waste a lot of time and energy and hours, and it's not really fun after a certain time because you got to go like grind and level up and all that stuff. The cool thing about Final Fantasy XIV is that you can take your time, and a lot of dungeons are 4-person dungeons. So especially in the early game and in the base game especially. So all you have to do is, as long as you've got either a guild or a free company, as they're known in Final Fantasy XIV, or you've got like 1 or 2 friends, you can go through and you can do a lot of the main story with either just by yourself with a couple of friends or with a pickup group. And the pickup groups in Final Fantasy XIV are astoundingly good. This is a game that is full of excellent people. So we have had no trouble because we don't have a tank for our composition. So that's a prerequisite, is you need 2 DPS, a healer, and a tank for each dungeon that you do in Final Fantasy XIV. So we always go into a dungeon looking for some random tank. We've never been disappointed, ever. These could easily go sideways, but they always go great. And we've only wiped a couple of times, and anytime we've wiped, the person that is like running as our tank is so chill. They're like, oh, you guys have never done this before. It's fine. I wiped like 4 times the first time I did this dungeon. Don't worry. I got you. So just an exceptional community. So I think that the way that Final Fantasy XIV has been created from the ground up with A Realm Reborn has been based around the idea of community and that this game is nothing without its people.
Yeah, that sounds great. I mean, the
Heckin' wholesome, dude.
The good community is a rare thing in online games. So, okay, so that's Final Fantasy XIV. It's a thing. I mean, you can play a good portion of that game without spending any money on it. I think you get up to what, like level 20?
I think so.
So anybody that wants to give it a shot can certainly do so. I think the character creation process is a little bit more intimidating than it should be, just because it asks you a lot of questions all at once and doesn't tell you what the consequences are. But I encourage everybody, just kind of do it. And if you're interested in it, give it a try, especially if you've never tried like an MMO. I think I definitely think Final Fantasy XIV is a great place to start if you're interested in that, especially on the back of its strong community. And I'll be playing there and we'll be able to report back. Because I am sold. I'm gonna give it a try. I might have to remake my guy on whatever server you guys are on, but we'll figure it out. So that is Around the Horn. The next couple of weeks are gonna be very interesting, as both of us are gonna be traveling a lot, but we'll make it work. So let's take a little bit of a break, and when we come back, we're gonna talk about a new game that is coming in 2020 that both of us are very excited about and just found out. And then we're going to ponder an interesting question that was presented by Today specifically in the gaming space. So everybody, we will be back in a moment. Hey everybody, this is Steve, I'm the host. If you like listening to this podcast, you probably like some of our other content too. You can find that all over social media, so make sure to head over to facebook.com/engagedfamilygaming. Perhaps you might like to see some stuff on Twitter by going to twitter.com/EFGAMING, or maybe you just want to head on over to Instagram and look for Engaged Family Gaming there. See you later, guys. Bye now. All right, everybody, we are back. It is still episode 209. I'm still Steven, and I'm still here with the Princess of Power. And we're still talking about video games. So we went around the horn. We talked about some MMOs we've been playing. We talked about some old games. Let's talk about a new game. Game that was just announced is probably the right word. Just brought to the public at large this past week. And it's coming to Steam in early access during 2020, and it is called Hokko Life, HOKKOLIFE. Now, Amanda, did you know of this game before it hit the video game universe?
I sure did not. I've been out of the game for a little while, man. I'm just getting back into it.
Oh, I get that, but you, your reputation, at least in my heart, is that you are just omniscient and omnipresent. So
you're the best.
Hokko Life. Let me give you an elevator pitch on this.
Tell me everything. I'm so excited about this game.
Here's what's crazy. I can tell you everything, and it'll take maybe a minute. So, Hokko Life is Animal Crossing on PC. Done. I just did it. Literally, that's it. So it's
that's the tweet.
It is Animal Crossing on PC. Hit send tweet. So it's a little bit more than that, but ever so slightly, and I'm honestly okay with that. So anybody that's interested, go to hokko.life, and you'll get the information. It's a community sim is what they call it. And it's just like Animal Crossing. I think it is a kind of a cross between Animal Crossing and The Sims. And the Sims piece is really just coming down to the fact that it is a PC game, so it is expandable. There's going to be a lot more systems, and I am sure over time this game is going to get way more complicated than, say, an Animal Crossing, which is really meant to be a simple and just a peaceful and like a simple joy of a game to play, right? Whereas this one, I feel like it's going to have a little bit more work to it just by nature of the fact that there's just more stuff to do.
Yeah.
And it's coming into early access, which means we're going to see player feedback come into it. Some of the features that are built into the game, it has a crafting system where you go out into mines and forests and mine and dig and chop for your resources, and you bring it back and you craft stuff. That is not new, right? We all know how that works. But crafting systems, no matter what they're in, are always fun, right? Like, it just, for me, it just feels like going and gathering stuff and coming back and seeing what you can make out of it is just this mechanic. They could put it into Street Fighter, and I'd probably be okay with it. Actually, I would be super okay with it if they put it in Street Fighter. So they have one thing they showed off, and they have this very awesome 1:09 trailer that I had you watch before the episode.
Oh, yeah.
And it was packed full of information. One of the things they talked about is they had a pretty robust item design tool. So like shirts and pillows, and you're able to customize the look of everything with like a pretty okay set of tools for designing. And I'm sure that that's only going to get better over time. Like I could imagine I'll be able to eventually like make my house and throw like our logo on it. Right? Like, that's the kind of stuff that I would imagine, and that's super cool. You can design, you can paint, you can build, you can decorate. The level of detail in how, like, you can really get into detail on, like, how you put throw pillows on couches. Like, with some very detailed stuff. Which means there's going to be very clearly two different groups of people. I would imagine that you would be the one that would be very careful as far as like where your matching throw pillows go on each pillow. And for me, it's like everything's going to live in a grid. I do know you
so well.
Everything's going to go on a grid, and it's going to be all about efficiency and austerity. And it's going to be green and black because that's my LARP team's colors. Like, it's just going to end up being like that thing, right? Or maybe I'll make an EFG house. So, like, who knows? It's going to be one of those situations, or you're going to be like a kid, just leaves your furniture everywhere, So, it does have farming in it, which we don't know how deep that farming goes. My son, Jacob, watched the trailer, and he goes, oh, so it's like they, like, just made a donut and, like, made an Animal Crossing donut and put, like, Stardew Valley jelly in it. And I was like, I'm not mad at that.
I ain't mad.
I'm not mad. I mean, so we don't know exactly how detailed that's going to be, but it does have farming and fishing and hunting bugs. This is coming on PC and being, having user-created content on PC obviously comes with its own challenges. However, this looks like a pretty wholesome, fun time. So I've been kind of simmering on this for a couple of days. Let me hear your thoughts now that I've talked way too much.
Okay, so fun story. I have been having such a hankering for a Sims game for like a month. And as soon as you told me about this game, I'm like, so this is Animal Crossing meets The Sims? I think I need it.
All right.
That was my immediate reaction. My immediate reaction was, if this is the hybrid that I've been waiting for, and I get to do even more with my people, then I'm all in. I am just all in. This is along the same lines of Temtem, man. Like,
that's a good segue. Let's put a pin in Temtem, and we'll talk about that moment. But like, but go ahead. I don't want to cut you off.
No.
I want to talk more about Temtem later, but it's along the same lines.
It's along the same lines. That's kind of what it reminds me of. Is it evokes a lot of the same feelings while being a completely different kind of game.
Yeah. This is, I'm with you, right? What I like about this is it evokes Animal Crossing sensibilities, but it is not limited by being an Animal Crossing game. And when I say limited, is that Nintendo, as much as they innovate with their hardware, right? Mm-hmm. Their games, Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild being the exception, for the most part, their games, 3D Mario games are 3D Mario games, by and large, right? 2D Mario games are 2D Mario games. And, Donkey Kong does the same stuff. Like, at the end of the day, Nintendo sticks with what works. And so, like, when they announced Animal Crossing New Horizons, which I'm super excited for, despite some of its challenges. And if you're curious what I mean by that, just listen. I recorded an EFG Daily Commute last week because there are some decisions they made that make me a little upset. But I knew what I was going to get, right? We knew that it was going to be a game that you could play in bite-sized chunks every day. It was not meant to be marathon for 8 hours at a time. It's meant to be played for 45 minutes a day. You pick it up, you do your chores, and you put it back. And you do that over a very long period of time. Mm-hmm. This has the potential, because of some of the deeper stuff, being able to go and do more crafting, etc. It feels like there might be more to do at a given time in this game. Mm-hmm. And the fact that it's going into early access. I mean, early access, one of the reasons you do that is so that you can take fan feedback and try and build up the game. I can't wait to see what this game becomes. Whereas Animal Crossing New Horizon, I know what it's going to be. It's an island, and maybe they'll add some new decorations. But for the most part, when that game launches and people get their codes and we start reading reviews and we start playing it for ourselves, we know what that game is. And it's not going to fundamentally change. Whereas this game, being that it's on PC, etc., I mean, who knows? They could add whole new systems a year later. And that's not going to happen with Animal Crossing. So that's what's cool for me. So it also looks super cute. It really evokes some of those same feelings. You're still a person walking around with animal people. Maggie, the first time she saw it, she goes, "Dad, this just looks like an Animal Crossing knockoff." And I was like, "Hold on, just knockoff implies that it's bad. Like, watch it for a second." And then by the end of the trailer, she was like, "Okay, so we're getting this." So what I find really is this is a second game in the last. Speaking of Temtem, mm-hmm. This is the second time in a couple of months that another company has been like, you know what, Nintendo / the Pokemon Company, you got a good thing going. Why don't we take this idea that has previously been locked on your consoles and make it distinct, and put it on PC, and kind of run away with it. And by all accounts, Temtem has been wildly successful. They've been really happy. They're getting, they're putting out new content almost every day, and updating it. They can't keep up with the demand, which is a good problem to have. Mm-hmm. I mean, except for the fact that the internet's toxic, but what are you going to do? It feels like this got a very warm reception on Twitter when this was announced, which is, considering how cynical Twitter is right now, and I can't blame it. The fact that this came in and just got everybody feeling good for a little bit, and this is coming out the same year as Animal Crossing, like I can't even wait.
Seriously, though.
So we got Hokko taking on Animal Crossing. We got Temtem taking on Pokemon. We already have a million Metroidvanias. What else does Nintendo have that other people could just totally just ape on and just make this kind of game? You think? Is there anything, or have they just kind of done it all?
I feel like these are the two major properties. I think that if they did anything else, it would end up, harping too close on like Metroid or Zelda or whatever, and it just won't go. It's like there's not enough there outside of IP recognition, like brand recognition, to keep people interested.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that they've done a really, like, these two separate companies, and they are separate companies, have done a really great job of capitalizing on the feeling of these games without crossing into territory that they can't come back from.
Because, man, Nintendo would destroy them.
Oh yeah, they'd be toast. Like,
I mean, we've seen plenty of fan games get torn down because they're trying to do something crazy. These are not fan games. These are real companies making real games that do real things.
Yep.
And they certainly evoke an emotion. And, man, I can't wait to get my hands on either of them, really. And it's Animal Crossing. I mean, realistically, Animal Crossing, if Nintendo just said, fine, we're going to publish Animal Crossing on PC, the world would set on fire. But somebody stole their lunch because Hokko Life is now on PC. So, will be on PC sometime in 2020. So, all of y'all can look forward to Hokko Life content when it comes out, because we will most definitely be playing this one. And again, if you're curious, we'll put a link in the show notes, but it's hokko.life. So HOKKO.life is the website. The very first thing you see is the 1 and 9 second trailer. You'll know exactly what Amanda and I are talking about this within it. Like 100% you will know. And I'm excited for all the people that just want to play a game like this, all the kids that want to play a game like this, and maybe their parents aren't buying them a second console because, dad has a PS4 and that's good enough, or maybe they have a PC. Because I'm sure this is going to end up on PS4 eventually. This is just what it feels like, Like, if this is successful, it feels like it'll move on. But if you have a PC and it doesn't look like you need a beast of a machine to run it, you run it on the family computer, this looks like it could be a great opportunity for those kids that have just been kind of missing out. Because they don't have a Nintendo. With that said, if you're one of those parents listening to this, get a Switch, trust me.
Get a Switch Lite even. We've talked about this.
Get a Switch Lite. Yeah, we did. We do love the Switch Lite. I absolutely love the Switch Lite. Although, I've had a lot of parents ask me in the last couple of weeks, and this is more of a reminder to myself to talk about it, is that they're still not entirely clear on the differences between the two. So don't worry, folks. I'm going to write a primer on that.
Nice.
Because it feels like that will be evergreen.
Yes.
Because Nintendo has made it very clear they're not making another Switch this year. Probably because they're going to do it next year. Who knows? Okay. So that is the game topic. New announcement. I'm going to save some of the other news for the EFG show later on in the week, because I don't think you want to yell about fighting games with me. So we're going to wait. I'll talk about Evo with Jeff on Thursday.
That sounds good.
Because I'm very excited about Evo. However, today, an interesting thing happened today. Today is Tuesday, the 11th. A very interesting thing happened, that the reaction on the internet and across various Discords, etc., was different than I expected. And that is that a game, admittedly, this is not a family-friendly game. I'm just using this as an illustration. A game called The Division 2, which came out towards the beginning of last year, was dropped in price today to $3. $2.99 as part of a promotion to go along with an announcement for a new expansion pack. So it wasn't just a sale. This was clearly this was marketing dollars that was used to subsidize the price of these games for folks. And it went down to $3. And I saw two responses. One of them was like, this game is definitely worth $3. It is. You will get $3 worth of entertainment if you install it and walk around Washington, D.C. for a few minutes, let alone the fact that it is a full role-playing game set in Washington, D.C. So there was that. There were a bunch of people in various Facebook groups asking, is this worth it for $3? And I'm like, I don't know if I've ever seen a video game that was not worth $3. Because bad jokes are worth $3. You know what I mean? But I just answered yes to all of them, and I've never played it. I was just like, yes, it is worth $3. Because it's like a coffee in Connecticut. Like a large coffee at Dunkin' Donuts is $3.03. You could get the Division 2 for less than a coffee. So that was one response. And those are fine. You can kind of expect that. The other one was kind of like a cynical, like, micro rage, which was, why did I pay this game? Why did I buy this game day one? Why did I pay full price? Or why did I buy it for half price? Why shouldn't I have just waited until it was $3? Now, I mean, part of that was a little absurd on its face, because not every game gets to be $3.
Sure.
But you saw some of that response today too, I'm sure, because you live on Twitter, much like I do. And so the question of the hour is, because this was actually posed of me, is it worth it to buy video games the day they come out anymore? And I have thoughts, but I would love to hear yours.
Okay. So this is a complicated question because I think it really depends on the game. If you are buying a service game, it is not worth it to purchase it on day one. Never. It is never worth it to purchase a service game on the first day it comes out so that you have it in your hands. I am talking the Destinies, the Rainbow Sixes, the Ghost Recons, and all that nonsense. Those are not worth buying on the first day, ever. You are going to have a much better game 6 months down the line. And also, the next time that we have this conversation, we should sit down and talk about Anthem, because Anthem is being rebooted in 2021.
Well, I was going to talk about that next.
Oh, okay. Well, even better.
That's next.
All right,
that's next. So we're going to talk about Anthem before we're even done tonight, because that's crazy talk.
No,
it's
good.
That's a real thing. So anyway, we'll put a pin in Anthem.
We'll put a pin in Anthem because I was burned by that, but I also don't regret it because I was really excited about that game. But games as a service, live service games, whatever you want to call them, those games are not worth purchasing on day one. You're better off waiting a month, 3 months, 6 months, a full year before you pick up one of those games to see if they catch on and they take off, because community make and break those kinds of games.
Yep.
And B, to make sure that the game is actually, working as intended.
Yep.
So big no on that. When it comes to single player games, it really depends on your overall hype factor. If you are extremely hype about this game, and if it's a Nintendo game especially, if you are super hype and it's a Nintendo game, chances are you are not going to see a sale on that game for like 2 years.
Yeah. I mean, maybe $10 off, right? Like,
sure.
Maybe $10 off at Best Buy, but like, you're paying $50 for that game at best.
At best. If not 60.
If not 60.
There. So, depending on where you live. If you're in Canada, it's 70. So it's rough. But the point is that if it's a Nintendo game, it's a safe bet. It's a safe bet purchasing first day it comes out. If you are looking to purchase a game that is not a first party or Nintendo endorsed third party game that's an exclusive for that platform, it is not worth purchasing the first day unless you are incredibly hype about it. So the games for me that I will be purchasing on day one will be Watch Dogs 3 and Cyberpunk. Those are my big two. Those are the only two games that I'm going to be buying first day this year at all. Because those are the only two games that I'm super hype about. Like, I'm hype about both of these games, so that those are my priorities. Those are, so Cyberpunk, of course, being a very, very M-rated single player experience, and Watch Dogs 3 being in this nebulous area of, I'm not really sure if it's single player or multiplayer or what the deal with that's going to be.
I don't know. I don't know if even they know. Well, they know.
They do know. They do. They're just not sharing
really
details. They're not sharing details right now. And that's fine. I don't care, because Watch Dogs 2 was an incredible game, and I played it a year after it came out, and I wish I would have played it immediately. So those are my two hype games, but anything else, I'll wait for it. I don't need them first day.
Fun fact, I actually reviewed Watch Dogs 2 for pixelkin.org.
Did you?
I liked it very, very much because you could beat people up with a yo-yo. So
it's an extremely wholesome take.
Yeah. You could beat up. You could specifically beat up Scientologists with a yo-yo.
Oh, I loved that quest. It was so good.
It was a lot of fun. So.
What about you? What do you think?
So, I mean, you took the words out of my mouth and said them more eloquently, which is literally the story of our relationship. So, so I think this is how I explained it to shout out to Los from the Future Monkeys podcast and his because he and I had this discussion in their Discord. It was I was like, listen. No, I don't think it is necessarily worth it to buy a game day one, barring a few things. It's if you can wait, if it's just a cool game, right, like that you just want to try, then wait, right? Like if it just looks cool, like for example, I will never buy a Call of Duty game the day it comes out, like never. But I always enjoy playing them. like I would Redbox them. You can't do that anymore, but like I would Redbox them, and now I can't do that, so I'll wait until they're $15 on Black Friday online, right? So because I enjoy their story modes, but like that's obviously not the point of the game. You're paying for the multiplayer, which I'll never play because I'm terrible at video games. So, like the example I used was, and this has not been announced yet, but Final Fantasy XVI is a game that is going to come out at some point in the next 25 years. I'm comfortable saying that. I'm not a betting man, but I'm comfortable saying that Final Fantasy XVI will come out in the next 25 years. When that game comes out, there is not a thing on this planet that would stop me from playing that game the day that it comes out. Period. Full stop.
I got Final Fantasy XV the first day it came out, and I regret nothing.
Same.
That game is fantastic.
Same. So it's and it comes down to the fact that is my jam, and so I'm gonna play it. Whereas like an Assassin's Creed game, I can wait. Now, admittedly, I'm in a unique spot compared to a lot of folks in that I come from a position of privilege in that I do get some games provided to me, but also I'm in a position where I really only play like 1 or 2 grown-up games a year. Right?
There you go.
So a lot of my time is focused on playing games so that I can talk about them on podcasts, etc. So some of my decision-making is a little bit skewed. But this is, I agree with you. I mean, especially for live service games, the day it comes out is the worst game that costs you the most money. Because it only will become better. Because there's never a game that's gotten worse over time, ever, really. Has there been a game that's gotten worse over time?
I mean, there are games that get worse over time, but it's
never say never.
Yeah, it's not a never thing. It's just it's rare.
Yeah.
These days, especially, not back in the days of the early MMOs, because early MMOs, God, we looked back at some of those games that got worse over time, like Lord of the Rings Online got worse over time.
Well, yeah, okay, that's fair, but by and large, especially in the modern era, games get better over time. I'll never say never, but and they don't get more expensive. That's one thing that is true. They don't get more expensive until they become collector's items. But that's, you can still buy them digitally. So I 100% co-sign everything you said. But I think hype is the number one thing that rules it, right? Like, if it's a game that you just watch it and every part of it is just grabbing you. This year, truthfully, the only games that really are grabbing any of us in this house are Animal Crossing and Final Fantasy VII. Final Fantasy VII is a great example. I will play that game the day it comes out, period, full stop.
Sure.
I'll probably even take time off from work to do it. But like Avengers, I'm probably going to wait.
Yeah.
Unless, I mean, obviously there's a lot of time between now and then. They can show me something and like convince me. Or if I was going to play with John or something like that would be different. But, I think I think that folks, and, this is a lesson for kids that, ask their parents for stuff. Like, you are always better making smarter decisions with your money and just being a year behind.
Yes.
And that way, especially if it's not your thing, right? Obviously, Fortnite, you got to get the Battle Pass when it comes out, right? Like, that's different. But when we're talking about, playing last year's Call of Duty or playing, playing Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, that game was $60, and in a couple of months it's going to be $30 forever. For a lot of folks, that's a perfect price for that game. Battlefront 2 is a great example. That game has seen some amazing success. EA during their earnings call was just talking about how Battlefront 2, which was much maligned when it came out a couple of years ago, they've supported. It's been like the little Star Wars engine that could. Don't at me, guys. I'm sorry.
It's okay. Don't worry about it, buddy.
So I knew you would be gentle, but that's a cardinal sin. And that game, it was like $8 at one point. And just play it. And so I think you and I both agree. No, in general, it's not worth buying games. day one, unless it's your job or unless you're super duper duper hype. Like, I will not be buying Cyberpunk the day it comes out. More power to you. Maybe I'll come to your house and watch. Because I don't know. That one's gonna be a little bit much for me.
Cyberpunk's not really your jam. It's like
not my jam.
Very, very gritty. It's very dark. It's very corporate nonsense.
Yeah, it's
dystopia.
it's definitely not my genre.
Yeah.
But then again, Nintendo games are the exception, and we really haven't. So I know you said like Watch Dogs 3 and Cyberpunk, like part of that's because we have no idea what Nintendo's going to do.
Yeah, that is a big part of it. I mean, like Animal Crossing's another one for me. When I think about non-Nintendo games, I can't factor Nintendo games into it because Nintendo games I almost always get on day one. Because there's no reason not to. I mean, like, what's my risk factor? My risk factor is I miss out on the hype. So I'm going to go be part of the hype.
Yeah. No, I agree with you 1,000,000,000%. And so, yeah, that's the answer to that question. I've been asked it a few times. Is it worth buying games day one? Generally, no, unless you're a slave to Nintendo or Final Fantasy like I am, at which point, what are you going to do? Right? Mm-hmm. So let's talk about Anthem, though.
Yeah, let's talk about Anthem.
This is a prime example of this. So Anthem came out last year.
Yes, it did.
Around this, so it's about a year.
Around this time, yeah.
And it promised some things.
It made a lot of promises.
So tell us about it.
Okay, well, for those, I mean, we talked about Anthem last year. We did. We talked a lot about Anthem last year because I was a regular on the show around this time last year. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that I was really excited about with Anthem was getting a lot more out of the game than what I ended up getting out of it. A lot of it was I'm not able to solo, I'm not able to group up when I want to versus when I need to, which again is something that Final Fantasy XIV does exceptionally well. You're just like, oh, I don't have to group up for like 25 levels? Awesome. Okay, I'm gonna do that then. I'm still gonna group up if I want, but I'm not forced to. So for me, what I really fell in love with Anthem was the world. It's beautiful. It's an absolutely gorgeous experience. Mm-hmm. It's glorious to fly around. The combat is solid. It's fun. It's interesting, but it gets boring really fast. So the loop is very similar no matter what you're doing. It's a very grindy, but not in a fun way. It's not Final Fantasy grindy. It's Original Destiny grindy, which leaves a lot to want. So we found out yesterday that it was confirmed yesterday. This has been rumored now for the past 6 months.
Probably one of the worst kept secrets in video games.
Yeah, seriously. I mean,
but it was good to get confirmation, though.
It was good to get confirmation, especially considering, Mike sat down with Andrew Wilson for Game Daily last year during E3 to talk about Anthem a little bit and to get some clarification on what the heck is going on there. And EA was really, really really adamant. Like, look, no, we're planning on supporting Anthem long term. We think that this game has a lot to offer, and they're not wrong. It really does have a lot to offer. Analysts agree that it has a lot to offer. Business folks like me, business writers like me are like, no, this has a ton of, recurring revenue that they can be doing. Even if they relaunch it as a free-to-pay hybrid subscription model, it's still smart as heck. They could pull this off. They could have a Final Fantasy XIV Realm Reborn situation. They could have a Warframe situation. Warframe's been around now for almost 10 years, and that game just keeps getting better. And that game is free to play.
Dare I say it, a No Man's Sky situation.
A No Man's Sky situation. Another really good example of a game that, did not launch well, was not received well, both by press or by consumers. And, there was a lot of animosity there. And I think there was a lot of animosity about Anthem too. I don't share it because I see the potential in the game and I am happy to wait. I just don't want it to be abandoned. that's what I didn't want. And it was really nice to be able to hear from the powers that be over at EA and BioWare that this game is still going to be supported, that they're still going to make something of it. So I'm hopeful. I'm not normally hopeful in this industry, but I'm actually really hopeful for this. I mean, as long as BioWare is able to tap, the team over at the teams that are available to them from the other studios if they need it, if they're also able to move away from, like they're also working on Dragon Age 4, right? They're working on the new Dragon Age. So I mean, they have a separate team working on that. So they've got their Anthem team and they've got their Dragon Age team. No word about anything to do with Mass Effect yet. So I think that Mass Effect is just in the hopper for now. So I don't know, man. It's got a lot of potential here, and I'm hopeful. I'm not hype. I'm hopeful. Cautiously hopeful.
My eyebrows raised. I am
I see
interested.
this.
So I actually, I'm glad that we're talking about it, because I actually put a question in earlier on today, or no, it was yesterday. I put it into the community, which you can go to by going to engagefamilygaming.com/community, and I asked if is now the time to buy in on Anthem, since it's getting significant work, meaning like at this point between now and when that relaunch comes out, like I've seen Anthem for $6. Now, admittedly, I didn't pull the trigger then. I don't know why. I had a reason. But like the upside to buying in now, while it's because it's not like they can raise the price on the game. They'll probably release like a new edition with whatever the relaunch stuff is, but like you could buy the base edition of the game. The upside is you have it and you can play around with it now. And there might be some benefit to being an earlier adopter. But I think a lot of it is just because it's cheap, and it's kind of like buying in now, having it on the off chance there's some benefit. But also, like, if it's getting reworked, like it's probably worth it to have it. I got some interesting responses, all of them negative from our community. And most of it was wait and see what they announce and see what they say, which I think is perfectly valid.
I do
and
too.
I think that's
I don't think that's negative. I think that's perfectly neutral.
Okay, some of them were a neutral weight. Some of them, no one said things that I could not repeat. I won't say it all, but a lot of it was, a few people were like, I'll never trust EA again, stuff like that.
Where have I heard that though? Like EA is it's like EA and Activision are the universally reviled publishers.
Yeah, I mean, I think some people are just mad that they quote unquote ruined BioWare, which they obviously didn't.
No,
this is a weird ask.
Yeah.
I think that's it. I mean, this is a weird ask. Like, hey, single player story based RPG people make a Destiny killer, and they didn't, because it's not a Destiny killer, and I don't think Destiny needed to be killed.
No. It's another looter shooter. Like, I mean, it's so weird that that's like a subgenre of third person action adventure RPGs these days, or action RPGs.
Yeah.
Like, but it's true. These are the kinds of games that get people engaged for long periods of time. It's like it's proven that there's recurring revenue there, and if we've learned anything by watching Ubisoft, it's that recurring revenue spend is really important for the bottom line for these for these big publishers. They have a fiduciary responsibility to their investors and their shareholders.
Yeah, the advantage is if Anthem hit, they would have a game that was going to be a big moneymaker that they didn't need to remake every year. Because, I mean, the reality is EA makes a ton of money from FIFA and Madden.
Oh, my God,
but
so
the problem
much.
is they have to make those games every year.
Yeah.
And admittedly, they have amazing project management, and they streamline the development process as much as they possibly can, and they're working on, like, 4 years of the game at one time. We've all heard the stories, right? Like, they are remarkably well-oiled machines, but they still have to make a game every year. Mm-hmm. Whereas Anthem, if it hit, would be a game that they would have to update, which admittedly, I don't know how games are made, but updating a game is easier than making a new one. I'm comfortable saying that.
As long as it's on the same engine, yes.
Yeah. exactly. So the fact that Anthem might be getting another chance, I'm excited just because, like Iron Man like it's an Iron Man game at the very least. I was super excited to see it. It was one of my most anticipated games. And I know a lot of folks were burned by it. This is one of those, I'm certainly going to keep an eye on it. I mean, and I bring up the No Man's Sky situation because here's the deal. No Man's Sky, they overpromised, underdelivered. There's no way to deny that. But that game has been redeemed to the point where I'm comfortable to say, we've been talking about finishing up our EFG Essentials for a long time, right? No Man's Sky is on our Essential Games list for PlayStation 4 and Xbox One. Because for me, it's a really cool space exploration game, and it is completely different now from what it was at launch. Because it has a creative mode and all sorts of other cool stuff. That is a turnaround, going from reviled to a game that legitimately I think I'm comfortable recommending to almost anyone. That is a pretty significant turn, and I would love for Anthem to do that same bit, right? It's a multiplayer, T-rated adventure shooter where you're fighting space aliens and stuff. Sounds great to me. I would love for Anthem to have a turnaround, and I'd love to have to make the decision of what to cut to put it onto an EFG Essentials list at some point in the future. Mm-hmm. So yeah, man, we talked a lot. For a light week, we had a lot of stuff to talk about. But Amanda, this has been episode 209.
Amazing. Of
the Engaged Family Gaming Podcast. We did it. We made it. Everybody, I hope you enjoyed listening as much as Amanda and I enjoyed recording. I have one favor to ask. Everyone listening to this show knows someone that needs to listen to it. I would encourage you to put this podcast in front of them, or at the very least, send them to engagedfamilygaming.com/podcast. Head on over and take a look and see this show and the EFG Daily Commute. Have them take a look at our various podcast products. We have a lot going now, and several are in the hopper for the future. So, Amanda, thank you very much for joining me again.
Good to be back. I'm glad I survived.
I'm glad we all did. And so next week you'll be off because you're going to be venturing forth to the West Coast. But don't worry about it, folks. I'll be here with Linda and a special guest, a returning guest, Carla Kopp, who's going to be talking about another board game that she is just absolutely killing it with that's coming to Kickstarter in a couple of weeks. And until next time, folks, we will see you soon. And don't forget to get your family game on. Bye.
Bye.
Music for the Engaged Family Gaming Podcast is Android Sock Hop by Kevin MacLeod and audio production by Six Pack Nerds Productions.